Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Yann Regis-Gianas, Head of Engineering at Nomadic Labs. Nomadic Labs, for those who might not know, is one of the largest research and development centers in the Tezos ecosystem. It's composed of more than 40 engineers working on the core development, evolution, and adoption of the Tezos protocol. Yann is joining us today to chat about the Paris C upgrade and the ongoing transition toward Tezos X, among other things. On today's stream, we'll be giving away 25 Tez to one of our lucky viewers. If you'd like that lucky viewer to be you, keep an ear out for a keyword later on during this stream. Then comment with the keyword below this video where it's posted by the @Tezos Commons account on X. Hi, Yann. Where are you right now and how's the weather?
Hello, Sue. Happy to be here online, but I'm also in my house in not far from the Loire Valley in France. I don't know if you see a lot of castle. How's the weather? Well, let's say it's excellent if you assume you are in October.
I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully
Yeah,
it will improve soon.
I hope.
So, given that this is not your first appearance here on TezTalks Live, and we've already heard your backstory, why don't we get the ball rolling with a little intro to Nomadic Labs? I gave a very short description off the top there, but how would you describe Nomadic Labs and its role here in the Tezos ecosystem?
So Nomadic Labs is a company that is located in Paris, in France. I would start by just saying that Nomadic Labs is a bunch of people. I mean, people that includes core engineers, but also business development people, people supporting the adoption of Tezos, communication people, administrative people, of course. And if I have to find something that is common to all of them, is that they are really passionate about Tezos. They are here for a long time, and they are here because they believe in Tezos as a success in the future, and as a really excellent technology that needs to be promoted. So, well, our role is in the Tezos ecosystem is to, of course, collaborate with other actors. In the engineering, we are delivering the Tezos roadmap. We'll come back on this in this talk, of course. On the business development side, we are focusing on the France, Benelux, Germany areas
Mm-hmm.
to promote Tezos, especially on, I would say, big corporates to get a large bump in activities. And maybe one other role is to transmit a legacy, the Tezos culture. Since Nomadic was one of the very first, if not the first, company founded by the Tezos Foundation to push Tezos to a lot of things. It has a form of duty to actually preserve the Tezos culture that is, a culture of technical excellence
Mm-hmm.
at the service of this vision of decentralized infrastructure for value exchanges. So that's it. That's more or less how I would describe Nomadic Labs.
Okay. And to that end, obviously, the Tezos core devs have led the way on bringing Tezos's latest protocol upgrade, Paris C, to life. And the Nomadic Labs team have played a key role in building it out along with the teams from Trilitech and Functory. Can you talk a bit about what the collaboration between these important Tezos ecosystem entities looks like in building out an upgrade like this?
Yes, I can do that. But before that, I will tell you that at the moment, the engineers are completely exhausted. They've been so intense in terms of work to a lot of conjunction of many things just to be ready for the test dev to showcase what we have done in the last 12 months. So core devs have been working very hard, especially for Paris C. Um, so your question is about how we collaborate. So what you need to understand is that actually when you do a protocol upgrade, it's something that is really central in the stack, the system. So especially for an upgrade like Paris C, which is full of new features and very large one, the entire Tezos stack has been impacted, and also the Tezos ecosystem itself. So we'll talk about later about, I suppose, staking, this very big feature, adaptive issuance that really change a lot the crypto economy of Tezos. And in prevision of this very impactful change, the collaboration that we needed to set up was not only, of course, orchestrate the core engineering work, like delivering this critical software with hopefully not too many bugs or not bugs at no bugs at all, but also many coordination to get the ecosystem ready, and also our four kinds of users educated. So bakers needed to understand what was this staking, this new staking mechanism, for instance. But not only that, we'll talk about the DAL nodes, so the new part of the infrastructure we want them to support. And users needed to understand that now something has changed. If the liquid staking is replaced by something new, and also related to Etherlink, we also had new, um, I would say, new features, new aspects, if you want to support this part of the infrastructure too. So the collaboration between the team of Triltech, Foundry, Nomadic Labs really requires to organize ourselves to handle all this complexity. So full
Mm.
stack impact. So it means typically aligning on priorities. So that you cannot do everything. You have to focus on what is really important. And then you have a load of communication content, meetings with amongst us, but also with ecosystem, a lot of product management, risk analysis, all of that, and it's a lot. And that's why people are exhausted. But well, there's a price to pay if you want to develop a fully decentralized infrastructure that is open source, that is deployed by others. You're not in full control, and at the same time, it's a quite critical software system. So yeah, um, I would say it was an interesting adventure.
Okay. And obviously there's a lot to get to in terms of the actual protocol and what it looks like and what has actually changed. But before we jump into that, obviously the process around the Paris upgrade has been a little bit different than what we've seen with previous upgrades. Hence, the final product being known as Paris C. Can you explain what happened with the Paris upgrade that led us to this point for those who might be curious?
So there is a joke in the core engineering team. People are saying, "Oh, we did so many versions of Paris because we really like Paris, so we wanted to have as many versions as possible to stay as long as possible on this protocol upgrade." Well, that's a joke because the reality was a bit different, and this reality is actually about, I would say, something that is quite, I would say, the beauty and the beast. So something really beautiful and something really ugly. So let's start with the beautiful part, if you want. So the Paris A and Paris B proposals. So you may remember, but I can recall what happened. Um, so as usual, core devs have proposed a protocol upgrades. Uh, but what was different is that we proposed two. We had two proposals this time: Paris A and Paris B. More or less, they were the same. We'll come back on the features a bit later, but the content was the same. But what makes the difference between Paris A and B was the fact that we didn't want to decide for the community if the adaptive issuance feature was to be activated on the very first day of the protocol activation, or subject to what we call um, on-chain vote. So something that a per block vote, where actually there is more or less a second vote for the community to decide when the feature or if the feature would be activated. So Paris, so we proposed the two solutions, and actually the bakers decided that they were convinced that adaptations needed to be activated on the first days of the protocol upgrades. So they have chosen it was Paris B, if I remember correctly, the proposal. So it's a, to me it's a very beautiful situation where actually as developers you just say, hey, there are some parts that we are in control because they are very engineering work, design, etc. But there are other aspects that really we want the community to decide. And it was simply governance at play. It
Mm-hmm.
plays its role and it worked well. Now let's talk about Paris C. So Paris C is more like an horror story from the perspective of engineers like us who wants to build bug-free software. So as you know, a blockchain is a critical software system. We are constantly doing our best to test, to even verify, to audit our code, but sometimes some bugs are stays in the implementation.
Mm.
So in that case, and especially when the protocol has been activated, there are several possibilities. First one is to say we'll live with the bug. Well, then if it's too critical, it's really putting in danger to endanger the assets on the chain. So it's not good. That was not the case of the bug, but I will come back on that. Second, you you ask people to actually replace the protocol with another one that is equivalent from the perspective of the specification. So what it should do, but
Mm.
you have fixed the bug,
Minus the bug.
minus the bug,
Mhm.
exactly. And in that case, you have two subcases. There is one where you ask people to trust you because you cannot disclose the bug. The bug, if you disclose it, will be exploited, and it's bad for the assets again. And there is another case where actually the bug is not really exploitable, but so you can be transparent. And then it's in some sense it's okay. People can check that what you are changing is exactly the bug fix because they can understand the bug fix, etc. You can disclose.
Mhm.
Fortunately, we were in this second case. So we had this bug which was related to what let me talk about the consequences of this bug. It prevented Etherlink users to withdraw their assets. Okay, if we had let this bug live, it would have for them to wait for the next Tezos protocol upgrade to be able to withdraw their assets. That's not good. I
No.
mean, waiting in 3 months to get back your assets if you want them, it's not good. So it was not critical, but well, not very satisfying.
Mhm.
So we decided to talk about that to the community and to propose a patched Paris, which was Paris C.
Okay.
The good, as any good horror stories, it ends well. Normally, for at least one person. In this case, for Tezos, Tezos community, it ends well because actually we had very, very good support from bakers. They were extremely onboarded with us to upgrade, to be able because yeah, to be able to do this smooth replacement of Paris B by Paris C.
Mhm.
Because actually that's something that we did at the very beginning of Tezos, but that did not happen in the past, except for situations that was really at the very beginning, so it was not exactly the same. So as engineers, we were like, okay, we know it should work. We have tested, of course, on in many situations, but we really wanted this to work. Otherwise, the chain could have stopped or something like that. So it went well, and that's a happy ending of the story.
Okay. And ultimately, the governance worked. The new
Yes.
proposal was adopted. The bug was eliminated, and now here we are at Paris C. Um, can you walk us through some of Paris C's key features and why they were important for this upgrade?
Mm-hmm. Um, First, the reduction of the block time. So you may remember a time where we had this block per minute. So every 60 seconds, you had a block. Then we divide it by 2, 30 seconds. Then by 2 again, 55. And now we are at 10. So it's a constant reduction of this latency. What is related to that is the fact that when we do that, it means that we are actually improving the layer one chain. We make it more reliable. If when
Mhm.
we do that, it means that as engineers, we are more and more confident that the system itself is capable of handling this higher space. So it's good sign not only because it improves the UX and the metrics, but also because it is a sign that we are trusting our layer one. So that's the first feature. Second one is the activation of the data availability layer. So we'll come back on this. It's an entire component that is really, really important for the scalability strategy of Tezos. And the final one is the new staking subsystem. So the replacement of it's actually not a replacement, an additional mechanism that that does allow a user to actually stake with a baker, so put Tez at stake to improve the security and to we will come back on this to reduce the inflation of Tez. So that's a lot for a protocol. It's the first time we have as many features in a protocol, to be honest.
Okay. And if we can start with the data availability layer
Yes.
node, here at Tezos Commons, we've been hard at work encouraging bakers to opt in and
Thank
activate
you.
the Paris DAL node.
Mm.
And I was hoping to get you to explain exactly what the Paris DAL node is and what part it will play in making Tezos successful in the future.
Yes, I can do that. So to summarize, if you need to just get a single message, it's that the DAL is a roll-up booster. It's really attached to rollup because it's the second piece of the puzzle to get a full scalability in the Tezos system. So what it means for Tezos users is that the capacity of Tezos as a network, so the capacity to accept transactions is now something that can scale at will. So that something that we will be able to just increase by putting more infrastructure. So that's really about scalability of the bandwidth of the network. So typically, before we in the original layer one, we had this block, and all the information that you could publish was in the block, and the block were limited in size because everyone had to download
Mhm.
all blocks. So you had to be careful so that the chain would not be stuck because someone has not the same network as others. With DAR, it's an actual new network on top of the layer one network dedicated to data publication and data distribution. So you can more or less relate it to you may know BitTorrent or that kind of network. It's really about that. It's about distributing data in very efficient way
Mm.
so that you don't force everyone to download everything, but you make sure that everyone that is interested by your data, by some piece of data that has been published can have some guarantee that this data has been effectively published and as for during some window of time, so that you can a lot of actors could have downloaded this data. So it's like making the data official, if you want, but in a way that really allow a very high bandwidth. So we during thanks to the activation of the DAL in Paris C, we have increased by an order of magnitude the bandwidth. But actually, it's just the beginning. Will increase more and more in the future because the system itself is made for that. It's made to move to 10 megabytes, 100 megabytes, 1 megabytes per second if we want. Of course, it requires more nodes and more infrastructure, but the system itself is ready for this expansion. While before, with the previous architecture, it was mostly impossible to increase the block size. So that's what the DAL is, and it's super important because it increases the capacity. And from a user perspective, it means that the cost of um, having a transaction taken care of by the ledger is actually predictable. Because since you don't have bottleneck, you won't see some increase of the price because the resources are limited. The point is that we'll build a system that is able to handle sufficient amount of volume of transactions, so that you don't see the difference between when everyone on the planet is using the blockchain or just a bunch of people.
Okay. And in the quest to implement that system and make it more scalable, why is it so important for Tezos bakers to opt in and activate the Paris DAL node exactly?
The answer will be short. If the bakers are not supporting the DAL, are not running DAL nodes, there is no DAL at all. Why? Because just like for the consensus, you need a certain amount of the stake to actually participate in the consensus. Otherwise, you don't get the security you need. It's similar, I would say. We need a sufficiently large ratio of the stake to run a DAL node, to participate, to attest data, to participate in this process of attesting data publication. Otherwise, just there is no DAL, so there is no increase of bandwidth. And then that's a threshold. There is a threshold. Under 66% of the stake, we don't have a DAL. So we need to be above 66%, let's say even 80% of the stake supporting the DAL. Otherwise, the service is not of good quality for Tezos users.
And where are we at right now in terms of reaching that goal?
Oh, so it has started slowly because we are putting all the tools at, let's say, we are offering all the tools for bakers to do this in the best conditions. So for the moment, the percentage is something like 1% or maybe 10%. I don't have the exact number because it is varying, but it's in the plan. The plan is to now educate the bakers and provide them with the best tools to do this. The good news that for most bakers, this won't require additional infrastructure cost. The requirement just, we are following the Tezos philosophy. We don't want to ask for our operators and bakers very huge machines. We want them to use low-end or relatively cheap machines to run the network, so that the network is open to everyone. And that's the same for the DAO. Yeah. Actually, just to be super specific, the requirements that you have in terms of hardware to run the DAL node depends on on your stake. If you have a baker with a very large stake, then you need a machine that is medium size, I would say. While for I would say medium to small bakers, they can even run the DAL node on the same machine as their bakers, or at least low-end machines are perfectly okay.
Okay. You also mentioned some changes to Tezos staking, specifically around liquid delegation. When it comes to staking on Tezos, now that Paris B is activated, what's the difference between the old system and the new one?
Well, the old system was a fixed issuance. So we had this written in the protocol. Every block you had a fixed amount of tests issued, 4.6%, if I remember correctly, and that's it. It was fixed, so you have constant value dilution.
Mm,
And for users, we only had this liquid delegation mechanism in place. So more or less to decide the baking rights of bakers, it amount to just look at the delegation and their own phone, of course. But the idea was that only the part of the bakers put at stake were actually um, contributing to the security of the chain. Okay, so that was the old system, and the new system is different in two aspects. The first one is the fact that the issuance is now dynamic. It's not something that is fixed. It will increase or decrease depending on the distance from a target security ratio we need to ensure the security of the chain. So it's 50% of all the Tez being stacked. And this means that if we reach this level, actually the issuance will be super low. So we won't see any value dilution. The security of the chain is guaranteed, and we are good. That's the first point. Second point is a notion of stakers, a role of stakers that is now introduced in Paris C. The idea is that now not only bakers put their test at stake, but also end users. That's a very different situation that what we have with liquid delegation, because now some part of the people fund are frozen. They can't use these funds. It's just at stake. In exchange for that, they get twice the rewards of liquid delegation. So it's a trade-off if you want. You don't use all your money, then we ask you if you can put them at stake so that the security of the chain is improved, and in exchange you get some rewards. And these rewards are not done by bakers uh, from off-chain system, but it's on-chain. It's a protocol that itself takes this into account. So it's a bit technical as a change, but from end user's perspective, it's really we want to incentivize them to just stake with the bakers, so participate in the staking, so
mm.
that actually both the inflation and the security of the chain are in a better situation than before. It was not horrible before, but it is now better. It's a very good situation now from a crypto economic situation.
Okay. This is all great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more. But before we dive into the nitty gritty, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
Yes, let's try.
Just before we do that, I'd like to announce today's keyword for the 25 Tez we're giving away today. Today's keyword is exclamation point nomadic. Enter the keyword exclamation point nomadic below this video where it's posted by the @Tezos Commons account on X, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winner, who will announce in the comments below this video on X as well. Okay, now Yann, it's lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers. This is just for fun so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you a night owl or an early riser?
Early riser,
Exercise or naps?
both.
Okay. Chicken or fish?
Both. It depends how they are cooked. If they are cooked by a French cooker, usually it's fine. I'm not, but I like a lot of cook from everywhere in the planet. But well,
All right, that's
France.
fair.
That's one quality
What's
we have.
your favorite country to visit for a vacation?
Italy, because the cooking is almost as good as French.
Almost. They're number 2, eh? If you were elected king of the world, what's the first thing you would do?
I will give them a Tezos wallet and educate them to use it.
Okay. Name one thing you will never do again.
My kid just offered me some of this very chemical beverage with this color and this taste. It was horrible. So I will never do that again. It was a
Okay.
nightmare.
What's the secret to happiness?
Truth,
Truth?
truth. Yes,
Very good answer. Do you have any pets?
yes. One cat, very old, almost 16 years old.
What's the cat's name?
Loki, like the
Loki.
demon.
Very good. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Crepe. You know what this is? Sort of crepes. The pancakes, French
Oh, make
pancakes.
crepes.
Very yes.
Okay. Excellent answers. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it. Um, Now that we've talked a bit about Paris C, I wanted to ask you about Etherlink. How much can you tell us about how close we are to seeing Etherlink launched on mainnet at this point?
I would say we are super super close. So I can tell you what is happening right now. It's super important when you launch I would say a new blockchain and you want to convince DeFi people to come to have a green audit. You want an external audit to happen, and we asked some external auditors to look at the code, and it's almost finished. And I think it would be the last blockers just to do the main launch. So a big announce will come soon.
Okay. Okay.
I hope.
Obviously, there's been a lot of anticipation around Etherlink, and I was wondering if you could walk us through some of Etherlink's key USPs and tell us why it's so important and has generated this amount of buzz.
So there is only one thing you need to explain to all your lost people in the Ethereum world is that actually Etherlink is a non-custodial EVM compatible layer 2. And it's quite a unique setup because a lot of EVM compatible rollups or layer 2s, let's say, or sidechains, I don't know, are really based on mostly based on the multisig or a central entity that is actually owning your asset. So we may even say that these systems are almost database, a centralized database, because if you have one actor that is able to do what he wants on the chain, I mean, it's not super safe for your
Mm,
assets. So if there is one thing that needs to be understood, that Etherlink has been a stage two layer two. So it's terminology coming from the L2Bits website that compares all the EVM compatible layer 2s. And it says basically that we are green on all aspects about decentralization. We have a governed sequencer. So it means that there is a sequencer that provides super low latency, sub-second. In half a second, you get a confirmation that your transaction is included. So it's super good UX. And at the same time, this sequencer is not controlled by anyone. It's governed by the Tezos community. So the operator is chosen by a vote, and the grades itself are also controlled by governance. So that's the first USP. A second one is the cost of transactions. So we have made a lot of performance work on performance to make sure that the actual cost of a transaction is sufficiently low that we can have a price that is stable and predictable.
Mm.
So that's super important for users and for corporates because they have some business model, some way of making a living. And if you at some point you say, "Oh, now the transactions you will pay $100 for each," they would just say, "Hey, it's out. I'm out of my business now."
Yeah.
And another USP that is quite important is the MEV protection. So even so the sequencer is governed, so chosen by the community, we want to add an extra protection for our users. We want them to have guarantees that it's impossible for someone to do some sandwich or anything on the order of transaction so that value can be extracted from their transaction. Nobody can steal you in some sense.
Mm.
So that's also something that is not common in the industry. And I think it's also for a lot of end users and corporates, it's super important because again, they have the guarantee that no malicious actor will be able to play with the prices. There is no manipulation possible,
Yeah.
and that's one of our USP. So I think it's quite convincing that Etherlink is a very, very, very interesting take on this EVM compatible layer 2 market.
Hence all the interest and buzz around it. Now, my understanding is that Etherlink is an important part of what we're now calling Tezos X, which, as I understand it, is the sort of next iteration of the Tezos ecosystem and the ongoing effort to build toward the sort of the larger vision for it. At this stage, how much can you tell us about Tezos X and its value for Tezos moving forward?
I can tell you everything, but it will take hours to to tell you everything. Okay, so um, let's focus on the value for users. Okay, so first, with Tezos X, we are targeting um, our current community, of course, people that have believed in Tezos from the beginning or from for a long time now, deploying on layer one, and really enjoying all our very good technology and all the guarantees that they have. With Michelson, typically, just to recall, with Michelson, contrary to EVM, you have possibilities to actually verify your smart contract to have a mathematical proof that it behaves well. So we will see in the future, probably in the regulations to come, that this will be more and more important. And so we have these users that have invested in Tezos, they have developed in Michelson, and for them, we want to enjoy exactly the same USPs as the ones that I've described before. So low latency, MEV protection, very low and predictable costs.
Mm.
And Tezos X is about that. So typically, very concretely, what will happen is that we will, at some point, allow anyone that has a code base, a Tezos code base and Tezos stack, to actually deploy on the layer 2 so, and interact very closely and smoothly with Etherlink. So that's part of the Tezos X. It will come quite, I hope in the next 6 months or 12 months at least, at most. It's something that is really important for us, for our existing users to say, hey, you can enjoy everything that Etherlink users gonna enjoy. Tezos X is also about attracting new users. Etherlink is part of Tezos X. It will at some point live in this canonical rollup. So this very powerful rollup that is able to run many transactions and has a very large capacity. So, of course, our ambition is to attract new users, EVM compatible users with the USPs I've described before, and the ability to actually consider interacting with existing Tezos application. So we'll see this very hybrid system, blockchain system, where you will be able to move assets in less than a second from Tezos DApp to an EVM DApp. So that's one aspect of Tezos X, but actually it doesn't stop here. The point is to have something like a cloud-like experience of blockchain. What does that mean? It means that today in a cloud system, more or less, if you want some, let's say, Linux with some database and some stacks that you are used to, just click on a button and you get it on in the cloud. Same with anything, some Python library or I would say some Windows-based system, etc. It's a universal infrastructure. If you want to run it, if it runs on your machine, you can also run it in the cloud. We want exactly the same experience with Tezos X, not necessarily to just I don't know run your web browser in the blockchain. It would not make much sense probably. But what we want is that if you have some software system, let's say written in Python or in JavaScript or in Java, and at some point you say, it would be great to actually integrate the Tezos blockchain or the other way around to have the Tezos blockchain integrate our system. It should be easy. It should just be natural for your developers to do so. So using their tool chains, the way they are used to implement a system. And that's the interoperability part of Tezos X. It's really opening the Tezos blockchain to all developers in the world. So the ability for anyone, you don't need to understand Solidity or Lego or something like that. If you have an existing software system, you can integrate Tezos. And the other way around would be also true.
Okay. And as you say, like Tezos X is quite an ambitious, large scale project. We could talk about it for hours, but unfortunately, we don't have time to do that.
I
And I
know.
wanted to ask, like, you'll be speaking in Brussels next week at TezDev
Yes. Mhm.
2024, which is a pretty big event in the Tezos ecosystem calendar. I've never been myself. Can you talk a bit about exactly what TezDev is and what goes on there?
Yeah. So TestDev is the event about Tezos. If really come at some point, please, because you will see it's really people caring and passionate about Tezos that are in the same room or rooms, let's say, listening to very interesting talks. So we will have a keynote from Arthur about Tezos X, why is that so important for Tezos to implement this vision. We'll have discussions about with people from other blockchains to discuss about decentralization, about scaling, about a lot of topics like this one, and people from the ecosystem discussing and sharing experience about how good it was to use Tezos for them. So yeah, it's really interesting event with a lot of high quality talks. You will learn a lot if you come, and you will meet also a lot of very nice and interesting people.
And speaking of high quality talks, what will you be speaking about when you take the stage?
Well, I will explain why Tezos X is already here and what comes in the next months about it.
Okay. And I've heard that registrations for this year's TesDev have surpassed the registrations we've seen in previous years. Why do you think that is?
First, a very, very good people at marketing and communication, pushing messages and explaining why it would be such a great event. It's also because the venue is very nice. It's in the center of Brussels, in the library, Royal Library. So, and the program I think is really attractive. It is collocated with ETHCC. So for people that came to ETHCC and they have seen the program, they will be able to come very easily. So that's also very important to open the doors as wide as possible for as many people wanting to join us on the Tezos adventure.
Well, it sounds awesome. I'm hoping to make it there one day. As I said, we're sort of coming to the end of our time here. And before we close off, I'd like to remind our viewers that we're giving away 25 Tez today. To enter, just type the keyword !nomadic into the comments below this video on X. For those who miss out today, we remind you there are awesome giveaways to be found frequently here on TezTalks Live, so keep tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. Yann, thanks so much for joining us once again here today.
It
It's
was a
always
pleasure.
awesome to speak to the folks working behind the scenes to keep Tezos technology at the bleeding edge of the larger blockchain universe. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off here?
No, I really want to thank you. It was a pleasure, really, really nice to talk about all this. Please come to TestDev and don't hesitate to reach out. And maybe a final actionable: if you are a baker, stake and support the DAL. We need you.
Absolutely. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been Yann Regis-Gianas, Head of Engineering at Nomadic Labs. Now let's go opt in and activate the Paris DAL.